Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. Created by speakers for speakers. It's your fast track to sharper skills, bigger impact, and a smarter speaking business. Subscribe and download using the link below. And step into the spotlight.
Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. My name is Thom Singer, and I am one of your hosts this year in 2026 as we bring you interviews with speakers who are out there making money, serving clients, and changing the world. And today, I am really excited because today we are joined by my friend, Ross Bernstein, CSP, CPAE, and a Global Speakers Fellow. Hey, Ross, welcome to Speakernomics.
Love you, Thom Singer. It's good to see you, buddy. Thank you for having me on.
I am so glad that I have the opportunity to interview you. And you've been a speaker for a long time. You're one of the few in our industry who started speaking when you were like 22 years old. You started speaking at 22. Since that time, you've written about 50 books. You have spoken on all 7 continents. Think about that, everybody. That means he spoke in Antarctica. And he tells me, oh, it's no big deal, but I'm going to ask him in just a minute. And you are going to be one of the keynoters in the opening session on July 25th at Influence 2026 in my hometown of Austin, Texas. If you are listening to Speakernomics right now, you need to be ready to purchase your ticket for Influence for 2 reasons. Well, there's probably 40 reasons, but the 2 reasons we're going to talk about right now is it's in my city. And if you've never been to Austin, Texas is awesome. I moved here 34 years ago and they can't get rid of me, even though they've tried. So you want to make sure that you're in Austin because it is the best place to be at a conference. There's all kinds of things to do around the conference hotel. It's going to be fabulous. But even more important, you want to be there because we have an amazing lineup of speakers this year. And one of the kickoff speakers is going to be Ross Bernstein. So Ross, let's go through a few of those things really quick. You started speaking at 22 years old. Who does that? How'd that come about?
You know, I was one of those guys where I love speaking. I was my high school commencement speaker, and I wrote my first book when I was a senior in college. So I was out doing the rotaries and chambers, and they pay you $100 and give you lunch, but I just signed books, so that was the big thing. And I just, like you, I just loved it and have been doing it. But, professionally, full time, it's probably been really 20 years, like since I joined NSA and really got serious about it. Like I went from being an author speaker to a speaker author. And that was a big shift.
Nice. Now I know the answer to this because you and I have been friends for about, 17 years. However, what was that first book about, Ross? What is it that you did in college that set you up to write a book?
Well, I was it's a crazy fun story, but I was a walk-on to play hockey at the University of Minnesota. I got cut. I became the mascot, Goldie the Gopher, and wound up writing a book about the history of Gopher hockey from this large, smelly rodent's perspective called Gopher Hockey by the Hockey Gopher. And it just really launched my career into being a sports author. So it was sort of one of those lemonade out of lemon stories, and kind of kept me in the game, and it was just a lot of fun.
I love that you were the school mascot on skates. I just love that. So, and for those of us who grew up, like I grew up in California, I went to college in San Diego. We didn't have a hockey team, but it must have been a pretty big honor to be the mascot for the hockey team at Minnesota.
Hockey in Minnesota is like religion. So hockey's a major sport in Minnesota, but I did other stuff too. The problem is that, the Gopher football team was so bad in those days that, the Metrodome might have 65,000 people, but we were getting beaten so badly that it was just no fun. So it was, but it was fun at the time. Sam Richter, CSP, CPA, was playing on the football team under Lou Holtz, and Walter Bond, CSP, CPA, was playing basketball for the Golden Gophers at the same time. So we were all there hanging around each other. I was cheering for those guys. We were all there at the same time. Yeah.
That is very interesting that there were so many who were all at Minnesota at the same time, who are really active and well-known members here in NSA. So you've written 50 books. What are your books about? How does someone write 50?
Well, it's all I did. It's not like NSA where you write a book because you want to, tie into a speech. I mean, early on, if I didn't write a couple books every year, I didn't eat. Like that was my job. Like I basically made Christmas gifts. That was my audience. I learned early on was women buying them for fat guys like me for white elephant Christmas gifts. So I was really good at getting on TV and the radio and newspaper and magazines and old school media, promoting my books as these great gifts for dudes. And it was just a great thing every year. Like, what are Ross's books going to be? And I was interviewing thousands of athletes and coaches and playing in all the charity golf tournaments. And it was a wild ride, but it was stressful. If a book didn't come out or didn't do well, you didn't eat. So it was like you had to. So speaking definitely was a lot more of a sure thing. It's a lot easier talking for an hour than spending a year writing a book. That's for sure.
Nice. And then the 7 continent speaking thing. I've heard this before. And like I said, I know that you have traveled all over the world, and your delightful wife, Sarah, and your daughter have traveled with you all around the world when you speak. But when I hear the 7 continents, I've never asked you the question ever. How did Antarctica come about? I'm going to venture to say, in all of NSA, who else has spoken in Antarctica?
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely something I had to create. They're very specific when you're there that you really can't do anything on Antarctica. They're really pristine about, not making any sort of an imprint or, leaving anything behind. But I had a gig in Santiago, Chile. I do a lot of work in South America, and we wound up going down to Patagonia, and then we flew to Antarctica on like a military plane, and you land on a piece of land that is like there, and then you get out in a Zodiac and onto a boat. We were on a small research vessel, kind of a luxury cruise, but for only like 75 people. And I struck up a deal where where I was able to present to the cast and crew and barter with them to make it an official gig. And it was, going through the Drake Passage. It's like it's the
Isn't it Vomit Alley?
it's the roughest oceans in the world. You're
rough
just
as sea,
barf. Yeah. So it was pretty wild. So you come back into Ushuaia, Argentina from Patagonia and Chile, Punta Arenas. So it was a really cool experience, and I'm really glad I was able to do it. And it's just one of those cool things I can say. Yeah, it's good for your introduction. That's about it.
Nice. Well, Ross, I hosted Speakernomics for 2 years when we first founded the show 5 years ago. And I started every show by asking every speaker, what are 2 tips that you have for speakers that you think they all should know? And the reason I did that is I want people up front to know kind of where's the meat of this episode going to be. So what are 2 tips you have for speakers? And we'll unpack it a little later. What are 2 tips you have for speakers that everybody should know?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I think the first one is kind of a good reminder to keep customizing. It gets really easy to just kind of keep doing the same old canned thing. And I think it's so important that you're able to go out and meet with clients, interview people, and really make it special, right? I know that's kind of cliche, but what does it really take to customize it? And really, we call ourselves thought leaders, but are you doing your own research? I mean, I'm still a working member of the media, so I get access to be in the locker room and the press box and the dugout with professional football teams and baseball and basketball and hockey. So I'm still interviewing players, talking to coaches, watching. I'm very passionate about sports, but that's where my research comes from, and it's always changing. And we can tie into things. I'm not an AI expert, but I can talk enough about it from what my clients are doing or what teams are doing to be relevant about it. So I think customizing would be the first one. And the second one is really kind of an old school reminder that, you got to keep pounding the phones. You got to go old school and do this. I've had to reinvent myself for some other reasons in the last 6 months, but I think it's been really reassuring to know that you can still fill your calendar by older traditional ways. And we can unpack that a little bit more later.
Yeah, well, we're going to unpack that, and that's probably a nice transition. And we're going to talk a lot about your keynote in July as at the opening ceremonies of Influence here in Austin, but you kind of transitioned into it. You've had a rough 6 months when right before we went to Influence in Phoenix last year, you got a little bit of bad news, and you were very open with it with your friends at Influence, and you've been very transparent about it with people in our industry and beyond since then. So I'm just going to let you tell the story. Ross, what happened last July?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So it's really, really scary. There's no stage 5. So it's a serious deal. And I literally got diagnosed a couple days prior to Influence. I got out of the hospital the morning of I guess the day before for the $1 Million Group, I flew in, but I had a gig that morning. I jumped on a plane, and I didn't know if I wanted to tell anyone or not tell anyone, but influence, you tell one person, and it's like high school musical. Everyone knew eventually, and it's what a great place to tell everyone, because these are my best, closest, most amazing friends, and I could tell them myself, and it was just nothing but love. And so what's unique about Influence this year is it's going to be 1 year to the day. I'll be speaking on the opening day on July 25th, 2026, and that's a year. So my program is going to kind of be a year in the life, and it's really going to be a tribute to all my friends, and some wisdom that I've learned from going through this, that I think is going to help my friends and colleagues grow their speaking business. So it's really not about me, but it's going to be a lot of great stories of things that have happened that I think are going to really help people grow. But yeah, definitely a scary time, and I've really had to reinvent myself. I've lost a ton of business. It's been heartbreaking in that regard. But shit happens, right? And just like COVID, you gotta reinvent yourself. And I've been doing a lot of that this year.
Well, I mean, I remember, and this isn't about me, but I remember being at Influence. I got on an elevator. I was on my way to dinner, and I was going to a dinner that you were invited to as well. And I got on the elevator, and you were on the elevator by yourself, and we had like 8 floors to go down. And you said, "Oh, I'm glad that we're alone. I want to tell you something." And Ross, you're kind of a cut up, right? You'll poke fun at your friends in the best of ways. You'll stick silverware in their purses so they'll get caught at TSA with a butter knife. And so when you said I have to tell you something, I thought, oh yeah, well, here it comes. What's Ross gonna tell me? And then you told me the news, and my mind immediately went to, well, where's the punchline?
Yeah.
And oh shit, there's no punchline. And then the doors open, and we had to go into dinner. And I remember after dinner, I came up and gave you a hug, and I said, could you have told me this news after dinner? Because it hit hard, not just me, but everybody at Influence. And
Thanks.
It's a testament to you that before last July, if somebody said who's the most liked person in the National Speakers Association, I would have said Ross Bernstein. And
thank you.
It was proven by the love and the outpouring of love that has happened over the past 6 months, that I know you've seen, I've seen, all of our friends have seen. But what was it really like to have to get that news 3 days earlier and then show up at your industry event and make the decision to tell people? Let's unpack. What was that like for you to make the decision to be so transparent?
Wow. Surreal, like out of a movie, like when they tell you that, right? Like, yeah, it's just, but it's like, okay, onward, upward. I mean, my first reaction was, I had gigs the next 4 days. Who's going to go do the gigs? So, it was just, before I could even call my family, I was calling Sam Richter saying, I need you to go do some gigs, because I'm in the hospital and I've got tests and they're doing all this stuff. And so it was really kind of shocking, for sure. But, as you move on, you realize that a lot of people have cancer. A lot of people know people who have cancer. So you just move on and you just deal with it. And that's really been my attitude, is just to be really positive, upbeat. I came clean, kind of before my big surgeries, kind of a big come to Jesus moment of, get your affairs in order. Surgeries where they really, it was pretty touch and go. If this was it, but I had to kind of come clean on LinkedIn, and the outpouring was unlike anything I'd ever really imagined. It was thousands and thousands and thousands of emails and texts and WhatsApps and comments, and just an outpouring. And most people just aren't, I guess, maybe that open about it, but I kind of had to be. I had to cancel a lot of events, and but I just kind of had to come clean. So, but my speech at Influence isn't going to be woe is me cancer story. It's really going to be a positive, uplifting, what I learned that's going to help people. And that's really always been my mantra is, like you, Thom, you're that same beloved guy. Everyone knows you, loves you, thinks the world of you, because you're always just giving, sharing, helping. And that's what you're known for. And, so that's really what I want my speech to be about. So that's kind of all of that.
So, so I know it's all a little heavy, but you had told me I could ask you anything. So
Yeah.
I want to, so the thing I know that most people would be scared of in a situation like you were in, it's one thing to tell all of your brothers and sisters within the speaking industry who know you and love you. What was it like to go public with clients and bureaus? That I think would be the terrifying part for so many people, is that, oh no, I'll never recover.
Yeah.
What was that like, and what kind of response did you get from those clients and those bureaus?
Horrifying on my end. And, for the most part, positive. I had a lot of international gigs I had to cancel, and, they were like, "Hey, we're going to bring you back next year." And that was amazing to hear. Um, but, you know, it's one thing for people to say something and another thing for people to do something. So, speaker bureaus are in the business of certainty, right? They hire someone and they're in the risk management business. They don't want a risky option. So I officially became risky in that light, and I did have to cancel some bureau business. In fact, last week I've restarted my chemo post surgery, um, and they changed my schedule because I had a really bad interaction last week to the new chemo cocktail, and I had to cancel more gigs, including a really big bureau gig next week in New Orleans. And there's nothing worse than having to call a bureau and saying, "I'm sorry, I can't be there." That's not what they want to hear. So I'm doing anything and everything in my power to be at everything. And I'm through, 98% of the hard stuff now. Now it's just I have certain days where where I can't book myself, and then I'll be done. And hopefully I'll be done. But you're not done in this business till you get 5 years of clean scans when you can officially say that you're in remission. Until that time, there's a term I've learned called scanxiety, where you've got to get scanned with MRIs and CTs and PET scans, and they just have to see if it's going to spread anywhere else. So, but I'm just,
So with scanxiety is the anxiety that comes with every new test. Just hope it's
yeah,
not there. Yeah.
yeah, with your oncologist team, but look, I'm just about positivity. It's onward, upward. And I'm very positive. I had my first in-person gig a couple days ago, which was amazing. It was a small group, but I was back, and I didn't know prior to my surgery if I'd be back. So that was pretty awesome. And I've got a pretty full calendar coming up, and nothing's changed. I grind pretty hard, travel a lot. So I'm very, very excited to be back on the road and seeing all my friends and colleagues out doing what we do.
So what was it like? I mean, it was like a couple months off because of your surgery and
Yeah.
the recovery and the holidays. What was it like to be on stage for the first time in 2 or 3 months?
Well, it was a very small stage, but that's kind of good when it's sort of a national holiday we professional speakers have at post Christmas, New Year's. Everyone has several weeks off, and you're rusty. You always forget stuff, and you're like, "Oh man, I forgot." So luckily, I knew this was coming. So one of my big gigs right before surgery, I hit record on the recording app on my iPhone, and I just left it on the podium while I presented. And I was listening to it a lot just so I'd remember stuff. But I probably rehearsed 4 hours the day before just to make sure that I didn't forget anything. But it
Right.
was,
And for a speaker who speaks 150, 200 times a year, you
yeah.
usually don't have to do 4 hours of rehearsal.
Well, I didn't want to take anything for granted, right?
Sure.
It was just one of those things where serendipitously I was able to remember everything and do it. But
Sure.
it's, well, you know how it is when you get in a rhythm when you're a speaker, when you're speaking a lot, it's a different time. Year ago, I had 20 gigs in January. Now this year I've got 3. It's a little different. So you just keep moving forward.
Sure. So Ross, how are you planning to customize your speech? You've alluded to the speech. Let's
Yeah.
move ourselves to July 25th.
Yeah.
What are you planning to do to customize? Because anytime any one of us would get asked, I've never been, but anytime any one of us would be asked to be on the main stage, it's a big deal. I mean, all of us remember our first influence where
Yeah.
wherever we sat in the audience, front row, middle, back row, we thought someday I'll be a
Yeah.
main stage opening
Yeah.
speaker.
Yeah.
And with everything you've gone through in 2025 and the first part of
Yeah.
2026, what are you doing to prepare for this speech, and what should we be looking forward to?
Yeah. Yeah. My first, by the way, was New York. I think it was '08.
1 year before me. '09 was my first one.
Yeah. And and I did a breakout, and like you, this is my first time. You don't ask, you sort of get invited. And I said, hey, I finally have something to say. And the timing was great. I'm very grateful that Jamie and Candace and the whole team invited me. It's a very huge honor, but it's also nerve wracking, as you know. It's like preparing a 5-course meal for a bunch of snobby food critics, right? It's like everyone's like, okay. But I've been working on this speech every day, and I'll be working on it every day until then, because I kind of go to bed dreaming about it every night and thinking about it, and I'm keeping a diary every day of everything that's happening. And it's going to be it's a one-off speech. This will never be given again. But the title of the speech is 5 things I've learned from stage 4 cancer that will help you grow your speaking business. So it's really, I'm going to kind of take you on the journey. It's going to be very visual. There's tons and tons of pictures and video. So it's going to be entertaining in that regard. But I'm going to go down these rabbit holes where I'm going to really go off into customizing, into referrals, into LinkedIn, into philanthropy, into, just karma, and some really interesting things, and some very relevant practical stories where I really want people, when I speak to chapters like you, Thom, I want to give good value. I want people taking pages of notes. I don't dumb it down. I want to give people ideas. And here's how I'm booking 120 gigs a year. So it's not fluff. And I want to be able to not just make this about me, but really to make it valuable, so they walk away going, God, this was really worth it, and have some great opening day energy that I can use. And my tagline is, you're going to laugh so hard, you're going to shit your pants. You're going to cry so hard, you're going to shit your pants. But either way, you're going to shit your pants. So please bring a depend. And that's really my mantra, is just to make people really, really laugh and really, really cry. And because it's going to be a range of emotions. And, influence is different this year. It's 3 days, not 4. So the opening morning, the theme is around friendship. The first couple hours are going to be, welcome. And then the opening is going to be one of our besties, Don Yeager, who
is awesome. And we interviewed him a couple of episodes back for Speakernomics.
Love Don Yeager. And as a sports speaker, we're very similar, and he's one of my heroes. He's one of the absolute best in the business. And he's going to go on first, and then he's going to introduce me, and I'm going to come on. I don't want anyone to follow my shtick, and I'm going to lead into lunch, which is going to be the first break. So I think it's going to be really, really impactful. I've never been more excited about giving a speech in my entire life. This is my opus. This is it. So like I'm just really, really looking forward to this amazing opportunity to share some wisdom with so many of my friends. And really at the heart of this is my love letter to NSA. This is the spirit of Cavit. It's about friendship. It's about all the people who have come to Minnesota, have reached out, have sent me cards, and it's really just my tribute to all these people like you, Thom, who've called me and checking in on me, and how I can share that love back to you. And it's going to be really, really cool. And there's a ton of, I probably talked to 50 people who weren't coming that are coming. I got buddies from Impact 11 coming. I got, people who aren't NSA who are coming. And it's like, I'm hoping they're going to join, but they're coming, because I'm like, this is going to be really freaking cool. So I'm very excited.
Well, and that's a great segue into one of your 2 tips that we said at the top of the episode. And that is customize your stuff. So obviously this is a one-off speech, and most of us aren't doing one-off speeches, but let's talk about customization. Why does it matter for a speaker that we're putting in at least a little bit of time to make sure that speech is for that audience and is relevant to what's happening in the world the day we're on stage?
Yeah. I just think, we get lazy as speakers, and we just we got it. We got a canned speech. And I just think it's so competitive now, and planners, bureaus, they want you to go above and beyond. It's not just a client call. It's going out and really, I try and be a fish out of water and learn whatever industry it is that I'm speaking in. And I work in every industry. I'm just a generalist keynoter. I'm pharma, medical device, agribusiness, wealth management, insurance, franchise, association, doesn't matter. You got to go out and interview some people, make it special, work those stories back in. Like we get lazy. I get lazy. And that, that kind of ties into the second part of my wisdom I wanted to share was when things are going great, this business is easy. You get phone calls but then you got to reinvent yourself sometimes. And it's hard. We all had to do it during COVID. We've all experienced highs and lows in this business. And, right, we've all been there. But I think that, there's some tried and true methods that you can do to get back.
Well, and your second tip was, keep pounding the pavement. So let's jump into that. Let's talk about the fact that you spoke 20 times in January and now you're speaking 3 and you had to cancel gigs and people know you have cancer. What have you had to do to start rebooking that calendar?
Yeah, well, it was really hard. And I went back and, I don't have a CRM. I'm old school. I'm a Microsoft Word guy. So I really run a
good Excel spreadsheet for you.
No, I don't even know how to run a spreadsheet. I still have to use a calculator. I'm not exaggerating. I'm Microsoft Word 95. Yeah, and that's the truth. You don't need a lot of technology, I don't think, in this business to stay booked. You just got to be able to work the phones, understand how to send a good email and follow up. But I book everything myself. I've never had an assistant. My wife, we travel together, but I do everything in the business because I have to know what's going on. And, I did get lazy for a long time. So I went back and I've, during this time off, and I've been calling people. I don't do outbound marketing. I don't just call a group saying, "Hey, I see you have an event coming up. Can I send you my stuff?" That's kind of throwing darts into the ocean. I just haven't had a lot of good success. It's like filling out RFPs. It's just not been a real thing for me over the years. To each their own. I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying that really hasn't been strong for me. So usually it's all referral from either clients, colleagues, just, people recommend you, or you get, business cards, you stick around at the client dinners and you got to follow up. And if they didn't follow up this year and you're not a candidate, but they say, "Hey, we got someone better, prettier," you got to follow up next year or the next year or the next year. So I was following up, and I'll tell you what, it's been almost 6 weeks since my surgery, and I've booked about 30 gigs so far. They're not all full fee. I wear that as a badge of honor. I don't have fee integrity like.
Yeah, you've always said you want to. Yeah. And I learned this from you 17 years ago. I want to work. So how do we make it happen? That's always been your mantra.
Right. Look, my fee is my fee, and it always is. But I'll justify it the same way we all did during COVID. We all had a virtual fee. We've all got a fee for hometown discount if you're speaking in Austin, or if I'm in Minneapolis or whatever, right? Or if it's nonprofit. So look, I'm in the $1 million group, but I got to work a little harder than everybody else. So, but I don't have any other side hustles. Like, this is all I do. I keynote. It could be a group of 10 or 10,000, but that's really all I do. So I want to be very encouraging and empowering to our members to say, in my opinion, that's okay. Certainly if you're with a bureau and you've got to have fee integrity, I understand that. But this is for non-bureau business. So, but I'm staying busy. I'm taking whatever I can to fill my calendar, and I will get back to that level. But it's a haircut, right? Last year, this year, it's going to be a haircut. And by the way, all the tariffs and the economy suck. So I think that's a 20% haircut for all of us right out of the gates. Unless you're an AI speaker and you're just booked like crazy, because that topic is so hot right now. I'm losing gigs left and right to AI speakers. We all are. I think the only people making money on AI are AI speakers, but that's okay. I love you, Sam Richter. You're my bestie, but leave some for the rest of us, right? But look, that's just how it is. So it's just given me hope to work the phones, send thoughtful emails, reach out on LinkedIn, get scrappy, keep working, keep moving, and I will get to that level this year. And it's hard. Half the year, there's 1 week out of the month I can't work, so it's hard. But I'll do it, and I think we can all do it. And it's a good reminder that we can all reinvent ourselves a little bit.
So Ross, as we sort of wrap this up, how are you staying positive through all this? I mean, I've talked to you a lot the last 6 months. You're going through some pretty, what I would call, heavy stuff, to not use a word that would have to be bleeped out. And yet, even in the hardest days, you always see the light. in this whole thing. So how are you staying positive, and what are you most excited about the future, beyond influence?
Thank you. I'm really excited about being back on the road. That's my happy place. Right before my cancer diagnosis, we actually moved to South Beach and bought an oceanfront condo. And we haven't even hardly been there. It's just we got diagnosed. We rented an apartment in Minneapolis to go through chemotherapy and be closer to our daughter and friends. So we've been going back there a little bit, and it's been amazing being in the sun and on the ocean, and that excites me. I just right now even I've got gigs coming up where in the next few weeks where we're going to be at both coasts, Key West and Anaheim and Miami, and I'll be in Atlanta. I'm going to have dinner with the Perlmans and Thurmans, and I had a great event out in Los Angeles right before my surgery. We had a wonderful dinner with Colette Carlson and Terry Shodine and Scott Bloom and Jack Daly and Bill Backrack. And, I love seeing my friends. When I'm in Austin, I call Thom Singer, right? Jason Dorsey. And so I've been very purposeful to reach out and see friends. And I love doing that. I was in DC a few months ago, had a great lunch with Allison Shapira and Willie Jolly. And I'm forgetting who else was with us. I'll think of it. It's fun to see people on the road, and I think that excites me. Being back on the road is hard now. Traveling, I need to be in first class seats, have the room, the space near the bathroom. It's just like it's a different world now. So travel's a little harder for me personally. I got to eat very limited things. It's just everything in my body's changed. The chemistry changed, but I am excited about that, and I'm excited about. Just every day I get emails and phone calls from all my friends. Just, hey, I'm checking in on you. How you doing? How'd chemo go? Whatever. And I'm so grateful, Tom. I have such gratitude for so many friends, guys like you who are just beautiful souls. And that's going to be my tribute to you at Influence. It's just going to be wonderful to really, who gets a chance to acknowledge their best friends and to thank them and just let them know how much you appreciate them and love them. And that's just where I'm at, man. I just feel so proud to be in the National Speakers Association.
Well,
Yeah.
I will tell you that, like I said, I'm not kidding when I say I think you're the most loved person in NSA long before the cancer ever came up. And so I don't think, I think all of this outpouring of love that you've seen the past 6 months is from a place of love from everybody who, shares this journey with you as your friend. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our speaker community as we say goodbye on Speakernomics?
I just say, keep hustling, keep doing what you're doing. We're all really, really lucky. We get to help people for a living. A lot of people we work with hate their jobs. We love our jobs. Keep giving referrals, help each other. High tides truly do raise all ships. Something you've been great about, Tom. And just, hang in there. It's going to be a tougher year. I mean, the economy is struggling. So just hang in there and keep booking what you can book. And I hope to see everyone at Influence. And I'm just really excited and grateful for you, my brother. I love you. You're an amazing human, and I'm so proud to call you my friend.
Well, and I'm so honored that I got to be the host that got to interview you today for this. And, I think I speak for everybody. We're glad that you're kicking cancer's ass, and we're glad that you're doing as well as you are. And we look forward to seeing you at Influence in July here in Austin, Texas, and many, many, many more influences after that. So Ross, thanks for being so candid on this interview and for telling me up front that you wanted to talk about everything, because some people are probably listening going, God, Tom, why'd you ask him that? I had approval. But thank you so much for wanting to be so transparent with everybody about what you've been through and all of that. So again, thank you, Ross, for being here. Thanks for all you do for our community and all you've always done for our community. Thank you to everybody who tunes in and listens. Remember, Speakernomics, this is the place, if you're a speaker, that you should be coming to learn about how to build a better business and be a better speaker. Because remember, Speakernomics is all about speak, get paid, repeat.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Speakernomics. If you want more bookings, credibility, and connections, your NSA community is waiting for you. Join NSA today. Click the link below and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and download this podcast wherever you listen. Thank you for listening to this episode of Speakernomics. If you want more bookings, credibility, and connections, your NSA community is waiting for you. Join NSA today. Click the link below and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and download this podcast wherever you listen.